And Josh, you should have access to share your screen if you want to try that.
Yes. So as you can see, meetup.com does not work in interesting
no.
ways. That's what we're here to discuss tonight. Anyway, thanks for coming, y'all. This is part 2 of the modern WordPress plugin development toolset talk. In the last talk, which there's a link to on the WordPress Pittsburgh website, I talked a lot about like all of the pieces of the development toolset for modern WordPress development. And I had like an example plugin that's still on the internet you can check out that had been generated using Plugin Machine, which is something I'm working on. So tonight I'm going to do a very quick set of slides, and then I'm just going to open up the app and do some demos. And happy to answer questions about what the thing can do, but also like Donald, before we started recording, you were kind of talking about having come watch the last video and understood some of it. We're hoping to learn more about some of this stuff. So, you know, if you all want to ask questions about like how to connect the dots between last week or last part and this part, happy to do that. It's a small group, so, you know, interrupt as you want. Anyway, about me, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Josh412 on Twitter. I've been working with WordPress since like 2.7, I think. And I definitely learned PHP and JavaScript development by taking apart WordPress themes and plugins. And like working out pods and contributing to WordPress. And since then, I've built a bunch of plugins and like worked at an agency and that sort of thing. This talk is for plugin developers or people who might want to be a plugin developer. People who write PHP and JavaScript for WordPress sites. Both slide talks, there are links to the slides in these slides. They are linked in the chat below. So this week I'm talking about Plugin Machine, and it's, you know, it's an app that takes care of the like often frustrating, repetitive things in WordPress plugin development for you, so you can kind of concentrate on what's most important to you. You can sign up right now. Just go to pluginmachine.com/register, and then you have to use an invite code. There's that one. So just put that here.
Do you want me to put that in the on the post or no?
Sure.
Okay.
And so Plugin Machine is something that is, again, it's for people who like write custom code for WordPress sites, whether you're a freelancer or an agency. This is something that can help you create a standard start point. Lots of people either maintain a boilerplate, which is a lot of work, or fork the last project they worked on, which is honestly what I was doing before that. Before this, in fact, Plugin Machine sort of forked from a thing that's forked from a project I worked on a while ago. So also for people who are, you know, distributing plugins, people who are building plugins and putting them on .org, people who are selling plugins, you know, because this is a tool that can help people extend your plugin or can help you with your own plugin development. And definitely people who are new to WordPress looking to develop WordPress. Like React is an example of an ecosystem that's come a long way in terms of like the setup. It used to be this joke where like, oh man, it's going to take 20-30 minutes to get your React app set up. Like that's your entire talk. And now you type like a command, you have a whole app. You don't have to worry about all those things. You can jump right into learning React. And that's great. And so to have that kind of development experience, because it, instead of learning how to configure tooling that not everybody really should need to know, right out of the block, you're like just learning PHP or just learning blocks. And when I started WordPress development, 8-9 years ago now, I didn't need any of this stuff, and I kind of was able to learn it as I go. And I worry that people who are new to it today might not be able, honestly, to get into plugin development if they're not already familiar with all this other stuff. So what Plugin Machine does for people is it generates plugin start points with all the tooling you need. There's the CLI for adding additional plugin features. That's a thing that's like almost done. But you know, Plugin Machine helps you get started with a plugin, but if you need to like add a block later, then what? So there's an API and a CLI, and one day it'll be a code extension for that. And creating the install ready zip files. That's like the next thing on the roadmap. So right now it creates zip files that you can like develop with, but one of the challenges is like when you add tests to your Git repo, then what? Like, do those get shipped to .org? Like, no, they shouldn't. Or you need a build per step that can create a zip file that you can put on your client site or ship to WordPress.org. So it helps with that as well. Because overall, what we're doing here is it's helping you with WordPress build tooling. And this list here is literally copied out of a slide from part one of this, which is on the WordPress Pittsburgh Meetup page. But there's just a lot of stuff involved. And Plugin Machine's the thing that helps set up all these different pieces of the toolchain. You might need it because it can save you time. This is stuff that takes time and can become like our endless pit of time when things go wrong. If you need automated testing, local environment or CI/CD, like you don't have that yet, you need help getting started with it. And if you want to learn to build quality maintainable plugins. So are there questions before we jump into a demo? Cool. As I said, you can go to pluginmachine.com/register. And if you weren't already logged in, it would take you to the registration page. You just click on cat and log out and then try it again. It should work. Yeah, so this just takes you to the registration code and page and just drop in that invite code that I gave you. There. I will log in as me. So this is the dashboard. It would look a little bit different if you didn't have any plugins, like it'd give you more documentation to work with. But I'm just going to go ahead and create a new plugin from scratch. Here. Does anybody have a request for a plugin with like a block plugin maybe? What's a good block plugin? Okay, we're going to do something contrived. Taco Block. Probably already in these days. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to choose to like add all the features now. You can like not check this and then skip through a lot of the next steps, and then you have to add them on your own with the CLI or manually if you like. I'm definitely somebody who tries to like automate everything out of my life. Like I have commands in the app for that like generate parts of the app now. So these are just like the different types of features that you can enable. I'm just going to click on blocks because that was like the scope of what we're doing here. And so these are just different parts of the plugin that like PHP functions need a prefix and blocks need a namespace. So I'm going to correct that error there. Taco clock would be kind of interesting. It's taco clock. So now all the features that I did enable, I get COS, like I haven't added any blocks here. So I'm going to go in and click the new block button. I used to go to the WordPress like handbook and cut and paste the tutorial and use that because it's a good tutorial. But this is fairly similar to the code that gets generated there. So I don't have to do that anymore. It's just all ready to go. So I could add some more features here. But we're just going to go ahead and go to package where I'm going to start doing things like this is the header stuff. Taco plugin. I like to note that it's going to add the meta to tell people that these only work with like recent PHP and recent WordPress. And that's kind of the assumption I'm using when I build this, that nobody should be starting a plugin today that supports PHP 5. Okay, so that's saved. And there's a little bit of information about what we can do after we download this development version. That'll also be in the README. So let's download that. And obviously I've done this one before. I'm just going to open that zip file. I am a big fan of VS Code. In the part 1, I talked about other, I had a list of other IDEs one can use. VS Code is free. It can run like in the cloud. It's becoming more and more of the standard. It's super accessible, extensible. I'm a fan. So let's take a look here at the README. Tells us how to like install things. We don't need to clone because it's not on GitHub yet, but it did like pre-fill the GitHub name there to assume. So we're going to put it. So I'm just doing what it says here to install the JavaScript dependencies. This takes a while, so why don't we split out the terminal?
So all you have to type is yarn.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to install everything.
Yep. I haven't used yarn much. Usually it's just NPM or whatever.
Yeah, so this would totally work with NPM. Like, you know, you're just still installing stuff. Like you could do NPM install. There's a few reasons why I like yarn. It's faster. And you don't have to type, you would just type yarn. Like yarn start, it's an NPM run start. And I know that seems kind of, but it's a big difference. Also, it's faster. So once we do like yarn start, it's using like the regular WordPress scripts is all been set up here, which is the WordPress tool for compiling JavaScript and things like that. And it created all of the files that I need here. These are my development files. So this is the block.json, which is this new thing, and like that defines just like theme.json that you can use to define the block and register it. Yeah, I saw you get points. And so you can define your attributes, you can define what files are going to be loaded, what the icon is. And this is all set up to get ready to go here, like all of the files for your edit component, your save component. We go back to the README here. We see that we have like tests, so we can open up a new console here and write tests out. These are very similar to my like JavaScript testing in and around WordPress talk. Now let's get back to why that's happening in a bit. You'll notice that like these are building. We can't really see anything yet because we haven't started up the WordPress site. So let's follow with what this does. This requires Docker Compose. There is links in the docs on, oh, I'm already running a site. Hold on one second. When this happens to you, you're like, what's going on there? This is the command that you want in like, because it just, or like some other site's running. I don't know why. Just kill all of them. I think Docker is really fun. It's installable. Like just go to docker.com and docker.com, find the installer. It's point and click. And it's one of those things where when it's well documented, you don't really need to know too much about it. Right? Like if people want to, I can get into what's in the Docker Compose file. Like I'm a nerd and I'm interested in talking about that. But But what's neat about it is I don't know if people have WP CLI configured on their site, on their computer or not. I could, in which version it is and whether or not it's going to run. But I'm just going to go ahead and add a user right now using WP CLI inside of Docker, and it's just going to work for me. Magically. I don't really need to worry too hard about that stuff. So now, oh, I do install first. So I'm just clicking that link. And tacos, Josh. So this is just a WordPress site that's running locally now. I can activate the plugin here. And I should see my taco block here. It very much just has a setting here. And so it's a very basic block. We can start playing around with the attributes in the, if we say wanted to like maybe move that text control over to the side, we would need to import, that is inspector controls that you use. Yeah, that was correct. Inspector controls a lot. Like if we want to move things over to like here, the block settings, like there's not any settings here. If we wanted to move this setting over, for example, we would just put that inside of inspector controls instead of using this is selected thing. So we could do like, get rid of this here. I think this is going to work. Live demos are fun. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah. So now the things like over here. And we can see it like updated real time. And all of that stuff is updating for us. And the other thing I like to show about the way that WordPress does, WordPress scripts works in development mode, is that we can format out the code. Yeah. It does sometimes happen for us that it formats out the code for us correctly, at least when we have errors. We'll see like where they belong in the right lines and stuff. And we're able to set breakpoints. So that's creating block plugins with a plugin machine. Are there questions before I go in and show different?
Just to clarify too, we could swap out like, you could use local or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Docker.
So you don't need to use the local development environment.
Yeah.
If you didn't have Docker, you could provide your own.
Gotcha.
You could drop this plugin into the plugin directory of a local site or server press or whatever you're using. If you're using XAMPP, that's fine. I think if you're working by yourself, it's up to you with whatever works. If you're working with the team, then it becomes good to standardize.
Gotcha. And
Docker is sort of the thing that works everywhere. It works across Mac, Linux, Windows, and like in the cloud. And you can literally run it inside of GitHub now, which is really neat.
I did not know that.
Yeah, one of the things I want to play with is that you can set up a code, you can configure a code space.
Oh, is that code spaces? Yeah.
Yeah, to run inside of, and I saw Helen did it for some of the 10up plugins. And so I kind of want to copy how that works into this. That would be really a neat feature. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go back to, I'm going to get rid of this here. Go back into this just to stop the Docker Compose site before we make another one. And let's make a plugin. That provides like your local development environment, and I can run the tests. And that's something that becomes really a big pain with PHP testing, especially because you might want to do unit tests with just like isolated code because it's fast most of the time. Like the big plugin that I'm working on for a client right now, like I have 0 unit tests. Everything I'm writing an integration test for, because the integration tests run with WordPress. It's just a lot more realistic and more practical to me. And so if we wanted to like have a post like, let's just call this like a books plugin, or like the cats, I don't know, cats. One of the most important features here is that if you'll notice every time you look at the right, we refresh the page up here on the right, you'll see a different kitten. It's just there to, you know, if you need to look at a kitten. But yeah, hold on, I did this wrong. I would like to choose these features now. Thank you. So let's add like a custom post type. And let's add
Can you add all of them?
yeah, I mean,
Unless you want to do another demo with the other ones, but and what's the difference? It said blocks and then it said block editor. I can't remember.
Yeah, so here, let's do an everything plugin.
Like a bagel.
Yes. Is it a good type of bagel?
I heard there was a cream cheese shortage. Yeah, so what's the difference between blocks and block plugins? Like what does block plugins mean there?
Yeah, so 2 things. One, apparently the cream cheese shortage was about like large wholesale cream cheese. Like there's still cream cheese, they just couldn't get it in the right size.
Interesting.
Which is like fascinating. Like back on topic 2. So in the block editor, sometimes you'll see like here where there are other icons for other plugins, and then you can like click on them. That's a side block plugin.
Okay.
Technically speaking, you use like register block plugin, I think, to do it. We'll see how it works in a second when I download the code in. So that's what that feature does. Like, we're doing an everything plugin. Custom post types, you know, is adding additional content type. Actions and filters have preset actions and filters. The remote updater gives you the ability to like provide updates through the WordPress plugin API. So you could set up another version through here and have it, like if you had it installed on client sites. It's not really a replacement for like licensing systems or anything. Could be, I don't know, in the future. So we're gonna have to give this a PHP namespace because we turn that stuff on. This is going to set up Composer and all the tests to have an auto loader and everything. Let's just keep clicking stuff. So we're going to add one custom post type. And this form will fill out all of those different labels that you need to register for you. And you can go and change them. We can add different features, make sure they're like enabled. Things like that. You have to get most of these for Gutenberg to work on the post type. in admin menu page, these can be either like mini React apps. So let's add that. Or they can be like basic PHP apps with like, or we'll link you a JavaScript file, jQuery. Do what you want. You can do it more traditionally. So blocks, which we've done once before, but we'll show it to a different one this time. Oh, look at the kid in this time. In there's also a mode where you can use PHP for the render callback and not use any like modern JavaScript for the block itself. I don't really like working like that, to be honest. But some people do.
Would that be similar to the process we do with ACF blocks?
Not really. Let me show. I'll do it. Show it to you.
I haven't seen that before.
Call this PHP block. I'm going to generate one and we can see what it does. This is why there's like a CLI for this, is that you can do this on the fly as needed. When you're like, oh shoot, I needed a second block, you can just add a second block. So I'm gonna add a block plugin like we were talking about, where it goes on the side. Bagels. And what's cool about this is it comes with the preset, with like the ability to save a meta field. Like you can put whatever you want there. Like if you wanted to have, just like a search panel for stuff there. But this has like one setting, it saves it in one meta field. I'll show you how that works. It was a good idea just doing everything plugin. The Compo actions and filters is a little bit different. These are sort of preset templates for like hooks. We'll see how that works. Like this one's just gonna be like if we just add an action, I say like init's a good action, it runs in the beginning. And I just want to use an anonymous function for the callback. And then there's also like some gravity, like I've been working on adding presets for like plugins that, like in the case of Gravity View, we're working with, or like WooCommerce, which is kind of common. I can't remember how many WooCommerce hooks there are here. Like here's, if you want to change the checkout field labels. So there's a preset there for that. I'll be working with other plugin developers to get those kind of presets together. It's just, a way to save time in your development. Cool. So this is the everything plugin. Yeah, let's spell the word plugin. Yeah, I don't really need to fill out all this stuff. So let's download this, and you'll notice that this documentation got a lot longer this time. And the README will include all those things again. That's the wrong screen. So let's open this up with VS Code. And let's take a look at the README, because it's going to have a lot more stuff in it. Like it's got the whole PHP section, more on testing, linting. So let's go through again here. Yarn. Hopefully the cache is warmer this time. So I have several blocks that we added here. So two of them ended up being the PHP style, and one was the JSX style that we looked at before. So this now, for the ones that, oh, this is the block sidebar. This is the JSX block. This is the PHP block. We added 3 things. So let's look at them separately. First, we have the PHP block, where there's a PHP function here where I'm able to make my output. So it's going to get passed my attributes, which in this case, there is 1 attribute, I believe. Yes. We could add additional attributes here. And then they're going to be passed into this. This is just like we're building a short code back in the day where you'd have attributes. And then it get passed an array of attributes and you do some validation and then you'd echo some HTML, you'd return some HTML. And then this is, this doesn't require any compilation. There's no JSX. I don't like writing things this way. It's just a lot. Like, this is why we use JSX, right? If we compare this to like this syntax, this is a lot more expressive. This is a lot easier to work with to me and a lot easier to read because it looks like HTML where it can. But options. Then getting back to the sidebar that we were talking about. What this does, it registers a meta field that now exists for us to work with in this file. And then this looks a little bit different than this is the register plugin function I was looking for before. I thought it was register block plugin. It's register plugin. And so this adds that kind of sidebar and by default, and you can make it into a panel with other options. And so this is like the basic thing that's going to like have a text control and then save it as a meta value whenever you, like as a meta key whenever you save the post. You don't have, what's neat about this is you don't have to like hook in the save post anymore. Like it's handled in the client and then gets done automatically. So let's before we go into there, we did a lot with that. Let's just like build those and start the local development site and just look at those for a second before we jump into all the other things that have been added here. This should be the same URL and the database. Give it a second. And if not, we will kill it and start it over. There we go. Okay, we are back into a WordPress. This is now a different WordPress site with this plugin. A reminder, it's State of the Word is next week. Thank you. We did not run Composer install. You got to read your whole README, Josh. No, this is actually the plugin machine itself. So let's continue with the README under yarn. The next step is Composer install. Because when we look in the main plugin file, we talked about Composer last week. One of the things, or last time, one of the things it does is provide an autoloader. So this class actually is there that the error was from. It's just a matter that like it didn't, like the autoloader wasn't there, so PHP was unable to load it. Whereas now that autoloader exists in the vendor directory, and we should be able to activate the plugin. That is weird. Should be working. All right, brilliant. So that was our custom post type, but let's just look at our blocks here. So we have the block that's like the same as the last time that we did this. Why is that not generating? Let's just take a look here. Oh, because it doesn't actually say that. Sorry. I am still working on some of these things, but that should solve it. And then yeah. Here. That does exist. Oh, weird. Okay, well, we will demo that function later. I will write a list about how to get that to work. So let's look at the other things that it did for us. For example, we got this custom post type added here. Right, and this is just like another post, just like any other post. It has the features that we enabled. If I had like non-enabled the editor, for example, we would have seen you know, the classic editor, not the not Gutenberg editor. What else did we add to this? I can't even remember. Oh, tests. Tests are very important. So we looked at JavaScript tests in the last demo. So this time let's look at the PHP tests. If we go back to the README. It's not the right file, README. This is a note down here that there is a, well, we can do like the unit test without using Docker. These don't have WordPress set up. So when we look in here, I've set up a bunch of things like mocking library and things like that. This test is because WP insert post doesn't really exist. It's allowing us to work with a fake WP insert post, and that's helpful for a lot of types of testing. But I don't do a ton of this. Right, like here's an example of a class that it doesn't have any WordPress dependencies, so you can just kind of test it. And it's cool when you can make those kind of classes. They don't really happen that much in WordPress. So if we go back to the README for a second, it shows us how to enter the special container for running WordPress tests. And so that ran my WordPress integration tests, and those ones don't have to, right? Like this is just inserting a post. like it's really there. I can go in here and say things like this assert same get post ID post title. That's backwards, but so this should work because there's really a post in the database. Like this should still pass. Yeah, cool. So this would allow me as I go to do to write additional PHP tests, which I can just drop in here to the PHP directory, and I get they auto load directly for me. So if I was like get posts or whatever, or I wanted to make my own little API for the specific types of posts that we're working with in the everything plugin. I also need to add a namespace here. Would be, I believe, everything. That's just the namespace. But I don't know, like I don't know, like return get posts. Right, I could write a test that where I inserted 3 posts and made sure it gave me back 3 posts, and then 15, but it only gave me back the most recent. Like I could write those kind of like very practical tests into here. And they would run for me. And I also have them running set up here. These are GitHub action workflows. So these run in GitHub for you. So these tests that I'm running right now, it's using the latest version of WordPress and PHP 7.4. Hopefully it's compatible with other versions of PHP. This allows us to run all of those tests on different versions of PHP through this matrix. Like if I go to, this isn't online, but the one that I did last week was, these are like each of the GitHub actions that it run. So this is the one that we were just looking at where it ran at 7.2 WordPress latest, 7.3 WordPress latest, 7.4 WordPress latest. And, as you get more serious, you can add more steps to your matrix. So that way you run it on like older versions. I was doing a lot of that this week for like the CLI for plugin machine. I'm developing in an environment that has PHP 8. And I started working on like testing in an environment with PHP 7.2. And I was like, oh shoot, I used a name property, which is not allowed in PHP 7. And so I added a matrix to test in all those other PHP versions, and also to run to like test, to like do a basic PHP compatibility check using the linter. And the linter is set up here. I believe that go to the README. It will tell me how to use it. So linters can do 2 things for us. They can show us if we have likely problems. So we call those sniffs. And so this is going to show me just a bunch of problems that I have. I don't really feel like fixing all of those. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this command that I have already put in to this composer fixes. And that's going to make all of these changes for me. And then if I run it again, it should just tell me everything's good. Oh, there are more. Now it's good. Didn't get them all the first time. So this is actually just like rewriting all my code to fit the standard that is defined in the PHP CS file here. And so if you want to use a different one, you can swap that out there. And so all this stuff is just kind of set up and ready to go for you. I don't know what else to show. Questions?
One thing would be, so we created our plugin and everything, and now we're going to deploy it to our client, or maybe we're putting it on .org. .org, I mean, we know kind of what the requirements are, but if you're putting this on a client site, like, are there things we'd remove, putting it over to them? Okay.
So within a week or so, the CLI will be able to like build the zip file for you. But for sure, there are things here. There's two things. One, when you install the plugin for testing, you do so. If you were to just cut and paste that into a live site, you would have a security problem. Because PHP unit is not designed to be used in production. It says it right in the docs, we do things that you don't want to do on a live server, that you will have security issues. Also, it just makes the zip file bigger because there's a ton of stuff. So the first thing I would do is composer install no dev. And then the flag O optimizes the auto loader. So that makes the package smaller. You're seeing it's removing all this stuff. And then, yes, looking at this, you would keep the builds, you would keep some stuff, just the PHP files in the blocks. Get rid of bin, keep build, keep the includes, get rid of known modules, get rid of tests, keep vendor, which is now much smaller. Like, yeah, there was all kinds of stuff in here before, now it's just the auto loader. Keep composer.json, don't need Docker, everything down here besides the README. Well, not the. So this is going to be a thing that's included in about a week, where it'll just make these zip files for you and then provide that via the updater API. Cool. Because there's tons of stuff in here you don't want to include. It's a great question.
Who do you see as your ideal user here? I mean, maybe you won't know until people start using it, but who do you envision, I guess, is the user here?
So I think people who are building plugins for sites, like we didn't look at the hooks file. One of the things this includes is an empty place to put your functions, but then a special place to put your hooks, right? And so one of the hooks that we added was init, and there's just some empty code here. But then the other one, like, just do something there. There you go. The other one that we added was like a WooCommerce. You can change the like the label and the placeholder and stuff for this one field in WooCommerce, right? And so I think that the one type of ideal customer is somebody who's working on quick plugins to modify WordPress sites. Like, this has WooCommerce hooks partially because everybody uses, like, it's a very popular WordPress plugin, but also because one of my clients is a WooCommerce site, right? And I needed to modify the checkout fields. Yep. And so that's something, that kind of developer, which is, me again today, is the kind of developer, and then also folks who are looking to build plugins, to sell plugins. And for those folks, I think that there's two advantages here. One is that it can help your customers extend their plugins, right? So there are, say, when we go back to the UI here, in that hook section, this is a different plugin than we were building a second ago. This is a different tab. In the hooks here, actions and filters, these are 5 or 6 very common filters that people who are extending Gravity View need, according to the people who support Gravity View. They were nice enough to answer. If you're working on a commercial plugin, I can help your users customize your plugin, and your support to help people customize your plugin. Because this can act as a snippet generator. this can be spit out by the API, and we're working on like a plugin that could potentially sit on the internet where people could just get, the snippets for that they can paste into their plugins for Gravity View or other plugins. So it's definitely useful for commercial plugin developers as well. If that's something anybody's working on, wants to talk.
I gotta admit, when you first said you were doing this, what was it, maybe a month or two back on Twitter, I was like, well, why do we need this? And now seeing the whole thing and also seeing how you're integrating in the ability for other plugins and their hooks to be in there. I mean,
Yeah, that's
this
cool.
changes the game. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Totally.
I appreciate you saying that. For me, that was a bit of a shift. Like I built a real quick version of this at the beginning of the year. That was literally just a CLI fork. It pulled down a GitHub repo. It's still up there, but it pulled down a GitHub repo with a plugin and then had 2 different versions that I could print out. And that, I thought about it, like I made a web form that you hook up to and it does that. But that was very limited to being a boilerplate generator. And this is definitely, especially with the CLI, which I can show you, but it may or may not work. It, for the most part, works. Right? Like we can add that if we wanted to.
And just another comment on that too. I think the thing we've been missing also in the WordPress space for development is that bridge from like the folks that are learning React to come into our space and feel comfortable. And so I think them getting these, kind of shells together of all this is gonna be really good.
Yeah, thanks. That's what I'm hoping for, right? Like, because let's see how far this goes. Because as I said, I'm working on the CLI right now, but it does appear to be installed. An error is what I was working on today. Shoot. Switch plugins. If I go to like this one, I think this will work. Okay, I give up. We're working on it. The idea here is that you'll be able to type this command, and it'll ask you those same basic questions right there. So you can go like block, I want this, I want that, and then it adds, it adds this whole thing again. And so you'll be able to jump right into it. Honestly, better than like, it's neat with Create React app that I can just build out a React app. But I have a bunch of VS Code templates set up because, there's like 4 or 5 different places I want to start a React component at. And I don't remember them all. So I use so I use like VS Code templates and things like live templates and stuff for that. I do really hope this will be something that like beginners can use again, but like avoid learning the tooling. Like you shouldn't need to know how to use Docker to be a WordPress developer outside of like installing it, turning it on and off again.
Yeah.
And starting things. And then you can use it every day locally and in CI. Other questions?
Do you have a, so right now you're using an invite code. Do you have like a timeline for when you won't need an invite code?
Not hard and fast, because I think that there's a few things that still need work, and like being able to put the plugin into a zip file and deliver that via our API is kind of something that I think that needs to get developed before I would say the product is totally ready for release. It could be in a week or 2. It could be in January. It really depends on how much I decide to work in December. That's the other thing. If I make it more available and a lot of people sign up, that could lead to me like working after Christmas.
Mm.
I'd rather just wait till January.
Oh, good. Cool.
Anyway, unless people have requests, I think it's a great place to stop. I appreciate y'all showing up even with the technical difficulties getting
Oh,
in.
meetup. Oh.
People who came on the day that the internet broke.
Yeah, we'll put the video up tomorrow sometime, and I put the link and I'll tweet it out too. So you'll, if you want the replay.
And the link will be on Meetup too, right?
I will put it on Meetup when I can get back to Meetup. But if you just go to wppittsburgh.com, you'll see the post is there already. It's just waiting for the video. So I have to download it and upload it and, you know, kind of jump through a couple of hoops after it's over. So, but then I'll embed it.
Can you put the link on the chat?
Yep.
That's great. Thank you guys so much. This has been quite amazing.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks so much. Cool. Okay. All right. I'm going to stop the, actually you're sharing. So if you want to stop share, but I don't know. We don't have any meetup plans for the next year yet. I have to find some people who want to talk about some things. So if you know anybody or whatever, if you have something that you want to talk about, you know, we're open to anybody who wants to talk about pretty much anything. You know, you really only just have to mention WordPress, but it could be like related to, you know, sometimes we have people talk about email marketing or content marketing, social media, you know, that kind of stuff that's only, you know, tangentially related to WordPress. So it all kind of goes together. So.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. This is great.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right. Well, have a great night, everybody. Thanks, Josh.
You
Take care.
Thanks, y'all.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.